Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black, Bespoke Radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? How you doing? Today's Monday, August 9th, 2021. 222 days into the new year, only 143 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. An absolute, total, undisclosed location. That's right. But it is beautiful. It is. Man, it's good to be back on the air. I had a very, very, very busy weekend. It was just insane. One day I'll tell everybody the whole story. But right now, let's just say I had a very, very busy weekend. So glad to be back here on the air with all of you. I truly mean it. It's a busy weekend. I'm going to get to most of it in just a second. But right now, I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing, Ray Hobbs? I got one of the most amazing text today from Race Hobbs. And, man, you make me laugh, Race. You're the best. I hope you're listening right now. I think that he is. We've got a very, very busy, very amazing week coming up on Fade to Black. And let me grab this first. Hold on. Had to grab something. You know what? I don't even know why I moved it earlier. It was here for a reason. I moved it over there onto a table that's like 10 feet away. And then now I've moved it back, but I'll show you why in just a second. All right. Tonight, very special guest, Richard Bleepin' Dolan is here. And I've told everybody all day today, a little bit yesterday, about what's going down. Tonight, Richard and I are going to do a full review and analysis of Showtime's new docuseries called UFO by JJ Abrams. That's tonight. And then tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett is here. We're going to talk about the new Netflix series, Secret UFO Projects, proudly featuring Stephen Bassett and a host of others, including Richard Dolan. That is tomorrow night. And then Wednesday night, he is back. Dr. Robert M. Schock is here. We will be discussing, amongst other things, but the new revised and expanded edition of his book, Forgotten Civilization. This is what I put on the other table. When I was supposed to have it right here in front of me, but I put it on the other table, which makes no sense. But now it's here in front of me. This is it, the new expanded and revised edition of Forgotten Civilization. We will be talking, it's full of illustrations and photographs and color and all of that. So that's Wednesday night here on Fade to Black. Now I can put this back over here. And then Thursday night, of course, is Open Lines. Open Line, man, we had a great Fader night on Thursday, didn't we? Yeah. Man, these Fader nights are getting harder and harder to top. They're just amazing, all of your phone calls. Okay, so that's Thursday night. A couple of things. I've got a bunch of conferences that are coming up over the next 3 months. August 18th is Making Contact. I need you to go to makingcontact.com. This is a virtual. You will have your own avatar. This is a virtual AR reality on this virtual island, the Making Contact Island. So you need to go get registered. Then you need to download the software of the island and of the campus, the Making Contact campus, and get your avatar done. I've already done mine. It's pretty cool. Go in and do that. Then you can go and explore the island and walk around and go and find the auditorium, because that is where you are going to be August 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It is a 5-day conference. That starts August 18th. The promo code for you to save $100 off the $249 ticket price. It's a 5-day event in this virtual world. It is absolutely incredible, worth every penny, and then you're going to go back and check out other events in the future too as well. Jimmy Save 100, all uppercase. You need to use that promo code and get that done. Then coming up right after that, in September 18th, 19th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, is the Conscious Life Expo. It's taking place, it's in person, it's live, taking place in 2 cities. Los Angeles and London. Los Angeles is up first. As soon as we're done with the day in Los Angeles, we go over to London. Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles at the LAX Hilton, then the Hilton in London. Okay, both in-person events. So get your tickets. Now, this is also streaming. It's a simulcast. So you can go and get your tickets. You can come and hang out with me. I'll have the Fade to Black booth and everything else at the LAX Hilton. I'll be hosting all weekend long for Los Angeles. I'm not going to be doing London. I'm not there, right? But come and hang out with us at the LAX Hilton. ConsciousLifeExpo.com. Promo code for that event is Jimmy, Jimmy, and you'll get a discount. I think it's 20%. I might be wrong, 10%, 20% off the tickets there. So go and figure it out. If you can't be there in person, I get that. Get the streaming packages, and all of that is there for you. Man, my headphones, again, are acting funny. It's weird. It just throws me off. Okay, so that is that. And then coming up in November is Starworks in Laughlin, Nevada at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. Go to starworksusa.com for tickets and info and speakers and all of that. So, yes, very, very, very busy 3 months coming up. All right. And, man, is it the plug? Is it the plug? Well, now it's not. Man, I think I need some contact spray, which is sitting right up there. That's about 15 feet away, but I can see it on the shelf. Need that contact spray. Got to spray. Psst, psst. Got to do that. Psst, psst. All right. Where am I? So that's taking care of the next 3 months, okay? So makingcontact.com, consciouslifeexpo.com, starworksusa.com. Tickets and info at all 3 sites. There you go. Now, you know what? I want to digress. I've got so much other stuff I got to cover right now, but I want to mention something. It's the little things in life, right? Okay. So 10 years ago, building the studio and doing this and doing that, and I'm at Fry's in Burbank shopping for stuff, and I remembered I wanted a cell phone stand to put my cell phone on. Right? I'm at Fry's. Fry's has everything. So I talk, hey, do you guys have a cell phone stand for my desk that I could put? Don't think so. You know, I asked, that's impossible. This is Fry's. Eventually, I found a sales rep, and he goes, yes, over there in that aisle. And I said, show me. So he walks me over, and on the shelf hanging was this. This was the cell phone stand. Okay? I bought this at Fry's 10 years ago. You can see, you know, it's a little thing, then you put your cell phone on it. But the problem with this is it sits too close to the desk, the tabletop, because you can't plug in your charger, right? So, but anyway, I've had that, doesn't have rubber feet. It just sits. I've had this on my desk for 10 years. And I, man, you know what? This is, I had to, I got to find another cell phone stand. So now I go onto the internet, my Interbox, plug in cell phone stand. Oh my God. There are thousands of them. And I bought this. Look at that. Now I can put and it's rubber, it's quiet, but I can plug in a jack, right? It's got rubber feet, it doesn't move, it's adjustable. But this is a game changer, people. This right here. and iPad, whatever, right? But it's the little things in life, and I have been enjoying this for 2 days. And the one that I bought, and it was cheap. I think this was $5 or $8 or something. And it came in a 2-pack. There's an extra one in here. Freaking 2-pack. I don't know what I'm going to do the other one. Maybe iPad stand. But anyway, I am just so happy. And it's rubber, and it doesn't slip out. It doesn't move. I am just happy. So I thought I'd share that with you. It's the little things in life. A cell phone stand. Yeah. All right. Now, one other thing. Go and get Joe's Garage by Frank Zappa. Go and get the album. Listen to all of it so you can listen to the Central Scrutinizer. Go and listen to the Central Scrutinizer so you will understand everything about this show. And with that, yeah. Let's get to the breaking news. It was announced today, very sad, rest in peace, Paul Hellyer, member of this community for a very, very long time. August 6th, 1923 to August 8th, 2021. In a brief statement by his family released today, and I quote, Paul passed away peacefully last evening at his home at 6:31 p.m. Family were by his side while he was taking his last breaths, singing him a blessing. Wow, Paul was 98 years old, and I'll talk more about this on Fader Night and the life of Paul Hellyer. I did meet him once. I spoke to him once, and it was many years ago at the MUFON International Symposium. He was speaking, and I had a brief opportunity to go up and talk to him and have a conversation. So, but the community is very sad today. Rest in peace, Paul Hellyer. All right, this news broke this morning. I just want to share this with you because it's pretty nuts. It's about Bernie Madoff. That's right, the notorious con man. He had multiple toes amputated during the final days of his battle with kidney disease. The 82-year-old Madoff, who was serving a 150-year prison sentence as a result of that $65 billion Ponzi scheme, died in a federal prison hospital on April 14th, where a dramatic final week led to him to having 2 toes amputated while he suffered from hallucinations after declining dialysis to treat the disease. The 4th toe on his foot later had to be amputated as a result of gangrene. while the toe next to it had to be amputated to prevent the infection from spreading further. Madoff's hallucinations became so severe that at one point he thought he saw a bird in a guard's pocket. While on other occasions he believed people were lurking in his room at night. That part, Bernie, wasn't a hallucination. All right, Tesla's back in the news. The Cybertruck. Tesla's Cybertruck customers will have to wait a little longer to take delivery of the electronic truck, as the automaker has delayed production until 2022. According to Tesla's webpage, Cybertruck customers will be able to complete the configuration of the truck as production nears in 2022. The delay applies to all models of the Cybertruck, the single, dual, and tri-motor. All of this according to Tesla. And the quiet pushback of production into next year comes as Tesla initially said it would start shipping trucks in 2021. Now, I'm going to go on the record right now. I want one of these Cybertrucks. Right now, my current mode of transportation is a Jeep. And I'm going to keep the Jeep forever. That's it. That Jeep will forever be in my driveway. I'll keep it until the wheels fall off or till my wheels fall off, whatever happens first. But I want a Cybertruck. I do. I want a Tesla Cybertruck. I want the super duper, maybe just the dual motor may be good enough, but the tri-motor sounds pretty nice. But they're so cheap. They're inexpensive, well, compared to other things out there. And I'm on a Cybertruck, but now I have to wait till 2022. I was hoping to get one this year. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to Gillian Anderson is 53. Sam Elliott is 77. And bassist Kyle of Bang Tango is 56. Our dead guy's birthday today is Billy Henderson, 1939 to 2007, died at the age of 67. Billy was an original member and founder of the Spinners. Billy and four friends at Ferndale High School in Royal Oak Township, Michigan, in 1954 formed the group. They had several huge hits. Huge. All of them toe tappers, including I'll Be Around, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, Then Came You, The Rubber Band Man, and It's a Shame. The Spinners. The Spinners nominated for 6 Grammy Awards, got a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, and he remained with the group for over a half a century until 2004. Billy died in Daytona Beach, Florida from complications caused by diabetes on February 2nd, 2007 at the age of 67. On this day in history, 1969, members of Charles Manson's cult kill 5 people in movie director Roman Polanski's home, including his pregnant wife, Sharon Tate. Less than 2 days later, the group killed again, murdering supermarket executive Lino LaBianca and his wife, Rosemary, in their home. Fader fact. Here you go. There is a group of wolves in British Columbia known as sea wolves, and 90% of their food comes from the sea. They're entirely dedicated to the sea, swimming several miles every day in search of food. Barnacles, mussels, herring roe. They even figured out how to find crabs by turning over rocks. And they also know how to dig for clams. And that is your Fader Fact. Sea wolves, who knew? Tonight, Richard Dolan joins us for a full review and analysis of Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett is here. We're going to talk about the other new series on Netflix, Secret UFO Projects. Wednesday night, Dr. Robert M. Schock is here. Thursday, it's Fader Night with open lines all night long. You know what to do. All right, this is it, my Bespoke phone stand. That's cool. Duck roll tape with a C-notch. That's pretty cool, Philip. That's pretty cool. I think I had one of those once, but it didn't hold a cell phone. Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox, and you can check out Philip's custom duct tape roll phone stand. All right. Let's get straight to it. rivermoonwellness.com, Fade to Black Blend, best coffee in the world. All of the banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend. All right. Okay, over the last week or so, or less, actually, it's been about 5 days, our community has been blessed with 3 pretty major UFO releases. All of this by the media. Last week, we got top secret UFO projects from Netflix, and that's been trending on the streaming platform since its premiere. And yesterday, we got Showtime's UFO from JJ Abrams, with all 4 episodes released at the same time if you are a Showtime app customer and subscriber. And also, yesterday, we got Ross Coulthart's documentary In Plain Sight, which finally streamed worldwide by Channel 7 out of Australia. Before yesterday, it was just Australia that got to enjoy it. I've tried to find it many times. Well, now, I've watched them all. That's right. Every episode from Netflix, all 6 episodes, I watched them. Showtime, watched all 4 episodes. More on that in just a minute. And Ross's In Plain Sight, I got that in too, from beginning to end. Now, tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett's going to be here. We're going to be talking about the Netflix docuseries. And he is featured throughout all 6 episodes and does a great job, by the way. And here is some inside info for those of you that may not know or haven't seen the series yet. And that is this. 2 researchers from Europe shot the series 3 years ago at the International UFO Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, which means you got most of the speakers from the conference. You got Bassett, you got Merrill Cook, Caroline Corey, Richard Dolan, JJ and Desiree Hertak, Kathleen Martin, Nick Pope, Mary Rodwell, she's great, by the way. Michael Schratt is amazing in it. And of course, you've got Alejandro Rojas. Because this was filmed 3 years ago and released now, you kind of get a time capsule. And what I mean by that is you got what everybody was thinking back then, okay? This series presents it all pretty well, but it's set 3 years ago. And although they mentioned TTSA, there's no follow-up about where things stand today. I found that strange. And for most people who are going to watch this on Netflix, they're not even going to know anything about DeLong or Elizondo anyway, so it just doesn't matter. But don't let any of this stop you from watching the series. It's certainly worth it. There are a couple of nuggets in there, okay? And Dolan and Bassett carry things throughout. And again, Stephen will be with us tomorrow night to discuss it all and everything else. And he's also got a very special announcement exclusively tomorrow night right here on Fade to Black. But next up, we have Ross Coulthart's documentary In Plain Sight. Lots of hype about the release, and it's all worth it. And Ross certainly brings a fresh take on the UFO question. He certainly has the connections to bring the right voices to the screen. And he never hesitates on asking real questions. He definitely lays it out there here in the States. But it's Exmouth on the west coast of Australia that really needs your attention. Now, without spoiling anything here, you've got to check out In Plain Sight. It's very well done. Which leaves us with Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. And at the bottom of the hour, in just a few minutes, Richard Dolan will join us for a full review and analysis. But before he gets here, I want to say a few things. Got to point some stuff out. First, I immediately reached out to all of the main players in UFO to get them to come on the show and have a conversation. Now, without naming any names, all declined for their own reasons, which is very strange. 2 agreed, but 1 couldn't due to a scheduling conflict, and the second just changed their mind. The total was 7. I reached out to 7. That's right, 7. Now, without jumping to some of the crazy conspiracy theories that have been bouncing through my head, and yes, I've asked myself what might be going on, let's just get to go with the reality, which is everybody declined for their own reasons, and none of them were the same. Coincidence? I have no idea. But rather than fight the current of the river, I called up Dolan and told him what was going on. This was yesterday, and yeah, he found it pretty strange as well. And then we decided that we would go on the air tonight and do our own version of Siskel and Ebert. We will review and analyze UFO on our own. Now, about the series. After watching episode 1, I posted it on social media for everyone to check out. Showtime put up a full episode on their own YouTube channel. And yeah, for the first of 4, it was pretty dang good. And I very rarely am happy with any UFO programming. It's just the way that it is. But this made me jump and post it up for the world to see. And then I watched the rest of the series. I was sent all of the series, all files for each episode. It's got watermarks in it, but I had that in advance. And I also have the Showtime app on Amazon. So I watched everything twice. That's right. I had to. Let me explain. After the first episode finished, Dolan and I will discuss this in a few minutes, I felt that this was definitely going straight for the ET issue, the UFO question. And by the time episode 3 finished, I realized that things completely flip-flopped, that JJ was taking things for a hard left or right turn. Take your pick, it doesn't matter. But things just got very, very interesting. Now, Richard and I will go all into this in depth, but there seems to be, from where I sit, there seems to be some very clever editing going on in that I'm not entirely sure if what is on the screen is actually what was said or intended. Now, I don't know this is fact. I mean, I know everybody here except for James Carrion. And I pretty much know how they fall with the ET UFO question. And things seem a little bit twisted. So I went back and watched everything again. Now, to be clear, I've either spoken to or have been in touch with everybody in the series over the weekend except for James Carrion and George Knapp, by the way. And we'll see over the weeks and months ahead how they all feel about how they were represented here on UFO. Okay? I don't know. And of course, you need to see it. You need to check it out. Your take may be different from mine. I don't know. And my mind can change again anyway, and it often does. After I watch it a third and fourth time, which I probably will, and I have a feeling I'm going to be doing just that probably starting tonight. Also, I want to mention this. Amid the flurry of UFO content, Amazon released the documentary Val, about Val Kilmer. And I got to tell you, this is a must-watch for everybody listening to my voice right now. Seriously. Watch all the UFO content. It's all out there. And it's free. But you've got to watch Val, and that is free too as well. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Great week coming up here on Fade to Black. Up next is Richard Dolan. He just texted me. I'm going to read it. It says, "I'm ready, sucker." Just letting you know that I'm ready. Man, Richard, I can't say these words on the air. It's a family show. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I'm going to bring him in now. Richard Dolan's the best. He's going to be with us right after this short break. I am your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. with wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Whew, man. Tonight, Richard Dolan is here. Now, we're going to be doing a full analysis on Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. I want to remind everybody about the week that we've got coming up. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett is here. We're going to be talking about the new Netflix series, Secret UFO Projects, featuring Stephen. And then Wednesday night, Dr. Robert M. Schock, and we are going to talk about the new revised and updated edition and release of his book, Forgotten Civilization. And then Thursday night, of course, is Fader Night with open lines all night long. Tonight, it's Richard. And I'm just going to say, Richard, I've got him muted right now. I don't need him on the air because Richard has lost his mind. He's officially... It's not coming back, everybody. It's just not. And he's laughing. He's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He looks very relaxed. and yes, very cool, Richard. Okay, let's get straight to it. Richard is one of the leading researchers, a good friend of the show. We hang out and trade ideas and argue quite a bit. It's how we progress in this world. And we are going to be doing that tonight on the show. And I've called this our version of Siskel and Ebert. And let's see if we can have a clash of the minds. Of course, he completed all of his graduate work at the University of Rochester, studied U.S. Cold War strategy, European history, international diplomacy. He is a historian. He also hosts his own weekly radio show, The Richard Dolan Show. Everything Dolan is over at richarddolanmembers.com. I'm featured there. So go over, join richarddolanmembers.com, and then you get the double dose of Jimmy and Richard. And that's all featured over there. Richard, welcome back to the show, my man. How you doing?
Hi, Mr. Jimmy. It's a pleasure.
You've lost your mind, man. You've lost your mind.
Shirt? I was looking at you on video, and I thought you're smoking weed during break. That's what I'm thinking.
You should see.
You're saying you're vaping. I don't believe that for an instant.
Yeah, it's heroin, Richard.
I knew it.
Yeah,
it was something like that.
Weed, heroin, and this show, opiates. That is one thing. Weed and this show, that would be like the worst broadcast ever. I could only imagine.
You say it's bad for you, but look at you. It helps you out. It's obviously not a bad thing.
It's how you do it.
That's exactly.
It worked well for Jimmy Page. That's all I got to say, man.
No,
there would have been no stairway to heaven. Oh, man. Now, okay, let's get the formalities out of the way. What was the last song you listened to today so we can move on?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and this was an easy one because I've been on this kick for the last 2 weeks. I've been listening to 1940s swing jazz.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, Benny Goodman?
It's like the greatest stuff. I've always loved it.
Benny Goodman?
You go in and out of certain things, right?
Benny Goodman?
I don't know what it was. So I listened to a song just a little while ago, one of my favorites. There's a lot of great ones. This one's by Count Basie's Orchestra. And the song is Jumping at the Woodside. Oof. And I will challenge the listeners of this show, during a break. This is going to cut into your commercials. You're going to lose money here, church. But I'm just going to say people should find Jumping at the Woodside, check it out. And the challenge is listen to it and don't move your body. Like, that's impossible. Because the song is just too good. There's
a really great scene in Mel Brooks. I'm trying to think exactly how it was done. But, oh, man, now I'm brain farting. His West.
It's the heroin.
Yeah. See, that's why you don't do it live on the air. 1972, the Western, Blazing Saddles. So and there's this famous scene. They're out in the desert. They shot it in like Chatsworth, California. And the sheriff is, they're rolling through and they come upon Count Basie's orchestra. And they're set up.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. They're set up in the middle of the desert, and there's
seriously Basie's orchestra.
Yeah. In the middle of the desert, and it makes absolutely no sense.
Of course,
it's a hilarious scene, and it's Count Basie and his orchestra playing swing in the middle of the desert in Chatsworth, California. So there you go.
Well, I love it. I'm just going to say this one last thing, and then we're going to get into UFOs. People think, well, why are you talking about music when you're supposed to be talking about UFOs? But this is what I've realized about the swing era in music history. It's like, I mean, the 1930s and 40s are so far removed from us now. Like, if anyone remembers that period, they've got to be in their 80s or 90s, and they were little kids.
Right.
So it's basically gone from us, and it really only exists in books and digitally and all of that. But I think we have enough distance from it now. And here we're well into the 21st century. You listen to that music, like, it's happy music. And this was music that was like during the Great Depression and World War II, like massive difficulty and struggle. And yet the music, there's this vitality, this optimism, this happiness. It's really an amazing thing. So you really, like, these are strong people and happy people, and they love to dance. Like, you can just see it and all of that. So yeah, Basie's Jumping at the Woodside, but there's just so many of those great songs that just well, that's the word they use for it. They swing.
Well, see, and back then things were so conservative. You weren't supposed to get up out of your seats. You were supposed to be polite and do this. Well,
yeah, I don't know about that. Actually.
But this is what happened. This was the controversy, and everybody,
were all young ones.
You can look this up. Benny Goodman plays Carnegie Hall. And he had his famous hit song, and it was called "Sing Sing Sing." But
great song, great song.
But so he plays Carnegie Hall. The headline for the New York Times the next day was Benny Goodman had him dancing in the aisles at Carnegie Hall.
Oh wow!
It was the first. The music was so happy, like you're saying. It was so infectious that everybody just lost control of themselves, and they got up.
It's impossible not to. And he was such a master clarinet player. He was so amazing. And listen, it's incredible.
That's right. He had Gene Krupa on drums, the greatest
the
drummer.
Original Keith Moon.
The original Keith Moon. Who Gene Krupa was the first guy arrested for pot.
Oh, really?
Yes, Gene Krupa.
No idea.
Smoking
the guy? Like the first person?
Look it up.
Good God.
Yeah, Gene Krupa, man, went to jail for the Mary Jane, for the marijuana.
Gene Krupa was like the first really monster drummer, like ever.
There
were great drummers before him, but he like became, and then right after him was Buddy Rich. But Krupa was like this amazing. He was so good. He just became like the center of the songs, and he was kind of like a wild Keith Moon type of a drummer.
Absolutely. He did, drum solos, right?
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a John Bonham a drum solo, for Led Zeppelin if there wasn't for Gene Krupa. Gene Krupa. So anyway.
Badass. Total badass. All of those guys. And the singers, listen to Basie, but Billie Holiday sang with Basie. She was just divine. Ella, a lot of people forget Anita O'Day, who was just another amazing singer of the 40s. Just so many. And Sinatra and so many others. So it was just a great time. So anyway, I've been on this little kick for the last couple of weeks, and I'm still into it.
There you go. And you're putting on your retro baseball uniform when you're listening to it, too, as well, and running around the house.
Did we talk about this on your show before?
Yeah, we did. We did.
We got into that?
I just needed that quick visual. Okay, Richard, very very big week, and when I was talking about last week at the beginning of the week how UFOs have dropped off the radar of mass media, Tucker's gone silent, what's going on here? And I'm not the only one talking about it. People have noticed this strange downturn. And then boom, in the same week, we get Ross Coulthart, the release of his documentary, In Plain Sight. Finally, Channel 7 out of Australia has released that worldwide. It's an incredible documentary. That happened. Netflix comes out with their 6-part docuseries, UFO Secret Projects. And then, of course, the much-anticipated UFO on Showtime by JJ Abrams. Heck of a weekend of UFO content out there. How much of it did you get a chance? It's too much to watch.
No, I haven't. Look, I've only seen the JJ Abrams up to now. So Coulthart's work is absolutely on my list, and I've never spoken to him, but I know I've had a lot of intermediaries, and I know exactly just how great his work is. I'm very much looking forward to diving into him. And the Netflix thing, I think I'm in one of those.
Yes,
someone
you
said
are.
That to me, but I didn't really look.
It was, I'll remind you, you may not even remember, this was filmed at the International UFO Congress 3 years ago.
The people from Czechoslovakia?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I do remember them, yeah.
So everybody at the conference is featured in this 6-part documentary.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's what that is. They went back and did a lot of post work on this, a lot of recreations and animations. It's actually pretty well done. But if I have a critique of it, what they didn't do, but it's kind of cool that they forgot to do this. They didn't do any updates. So it's a time capsule of everybody's mindset of 3 years ago, right? No follow-up on current events or anything like that. So it's without that, it's actually pretty cool to see where everybody was 3 years ago versus where we are today.
3 or 2? 2018 then?
It's with
2019.
Well, it's you. It's Mary Rodwell. Let me.
It doesn't matter. We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
We don't need to quibble over that.
So Alejandro's in it too as well. So that may give you a little bit of this. But let's get to the point of the meat of the matter, which is UFO by JJ Abrams. My first comments, if I'm going to have comments to open this up, I would like your follow-up on what I'm about to say, which is
sure.
High expectations. It's JJ Abrams, so you know that it's going to have production value. It's going to be edited correctly. The sound is going to be correct. The music is going to be correct. The visuals and cinematography and the DP are all going to be top shelf. So you go into that expecting that. I got all of that for sure. Your comments?
Oh, yes. Well, I agree completely on everything that you've just said. So it was very well produced. Now, the first episode is freely available on the Showtime YouTube channel. You were kind enough to allow me to have access to the other 3 episodes. And I will tell you that I saw 2 of the 3 in completion and just kind of scrubbed through one of the others. So I have a pretty good handle on all of them. Episode 2, I kind of blew through pretty fast. That one was pretty good, though. Overall, I would say that the first episode, which is fully available to everyone, was quite good. I thought it was quite good. I have a real problem with one of the episodes.
We'll get to
we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll get to all of that as tonight rolls along. But let's talk about episode 1. And my I do want to go deep into this because it was so well done for me, and I am very critical when it comes to UFO programming. I just am, right? I am. I've seen it. I've seen everything. But I not only did I learn stuff in this first episode, but I thought that the approach from the writers and the producers and JJ was setting the tone for what was to follow in the next 3 episodes. And I had my hopes up for that. But that doesn't take away from the excellence of the first episode and what they chose to cover and how they chose to cover it. I learned a lot about the Phoenix Lights that I never knew before. And I've covered this so much that I didn't think there was anything new there. They obviously did their homework. I want to talk about that first. Were you surprised that they chose the Phoenix Lights to do the deep dive?
Yes, I guess I was, now that you mention it. And like you, there were things I learned as well. I, like you, thought, yeah, we know everything we know about Phoenix Lights. And that was not true because there was some significant new data points about that amazing case. That's 1997, of course, when the entire city of Phoenix and much of the state of Arizona reported just an incredible aerial display, over their heads. So, there was some interest. A lot of witnesses were brought out. Of course, we've known about witnesses for a while. I was very glad that they focused a lot on Frances Barwood, who was one of the city council members of Phoenix at that time, and the only member of the Phoenix city government at all who had the courage to take on this case. And man, she got roasted. We all forget this, but the episode brought this out, how she really paid a price politically for wanting to take a stand on the Phoenix Lights and just doing a simple thing like following what her constituents said is like, what is that thing? And she just started asking questions. There was one scene in there where this is all 1997 video. You see Frances Barwood at the Phoenix City Council asking about this UFO and like, should we look into it? And all you get is stony silence.
Stony silence.
And I've never seen that before.
I've never seen that clip before. I've seen the big clip with her, up on the bench and her facing, but I've never seen that clip. That clip was of a private city council meeting.
That's right.
The first time, you could tell it was the first time that she ever brought it up, and to look at the what's the word? There's an adjective about the look on everybody's faces as
incredulous.
Incredulous. Right? They look at her like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Right. What on earth? It was insanely great, and I've never seen that before.
It's an amazing moment. It's 25 years ago. Yes. Yeah. Right about that. And you've got this major event over the city. Like everyone's buzzing about it, and no one in the city government was willing to even to talk about it. That's just a shocking moment of culture when you really think I don't think that would happen today. Things have changed a bit, in the culture, so that at least there would be some discussion. But she just got a stone wall there. And there was a lot of other behind the scenes stuff. There was a claim, I don't think it's been confirmed, but an interesting and possibly credible claim that jet fighters attempted to intercept that object that was over Phoenix. That was new.
That was new, and so let's do that for a second. Let's focus on that because I was really surprised and taken aback, quite frankly, when Fife Symington says that the A-10, the then governor. That the A-10 Warhogs were announced by the Air Force as doing this flare exercise at 10 p.m. The sighting was at 8:30, so that didn't match up, and I found that pretty interesting. Then right on the heels of that is when they bring up the scrambling of FA-18s, and that happened at 8 o'clock, and the sighting was at 8:30. They're scrambling jets, and then they have the radio transmissions in this series where they were talking about the pilots' reactions about what they saw and how they saw it.
Right. And that they were like disturbed,
and they
just like almost scared.
Described it as they said 5 lights. And they didn't know if it was 5 separate aircraft or one large aircraft.
Right.
Now that was pretty incredible. Well done.
That's all new. As far as I'm concerned, it's new to me. It was quite powerful. Powerful. And then, of course, there was a lot of backstory on the build-up to the what Fife Symington called the alien caper, that awful press conference he did where they brought the guy, the person out in the alien costume. What was interesting, and this was also, I'm glad that they made this clear, in the build-up to that press conference, several months had gone by from the original sighting to that press conference, and Symington had said he had given a very strong indication that he wanted to do a genuine investigation of what happened. All indications were that he was going to take it seriously. He had been a witness. The world didn't know that at the time, but he had been. But here he's talking about, yes, we're going to look into this. And apparently the day before he had some kind of private briefing. This is what came out in the documentary. And the next day he has this press conference, this big buildup, and they just like bring this ridiculous sophomoric juvenile costume, of an alien. And you get Frances Barwood's reaction many years later. And I thought that was powerful as well. She just said, I can't remember her exact words, but she clearly was very disappointed, by what Symington did.
There was a couple of points that, again, I in all of the shows I've done on this, maybe this was mentioned, I don't remember it, and that was that Fife Symington had this investigation and these charges dropped on him. Corruption, embezzlement, finances, and that they were willing to drop those charges if he changed his tune on the Phoenix Lights and this investigation that he wanted to do. I've never heard that. And the other thing...
Me neither.
Me neither. That he went to prison for 2 years.
Did he, though? I don't think he... Did he actually, or was it commuted? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Yeah, I wasn't clear on that either, but it said he was convicted for 2 years. So,
yeah, but and then President Clinton pardoned him. Well, I guess it could have been 2 years. Clinton would have been president in 1999. I actually don't know, and I don't want to. Someone can Google, someone can look this up during break.
Somebody will. I'm going to turn this over to the Fade or Not. Somebody at Wikipedia. I didn't get a chance to go and look that up. Did Fife Symington do any prison time around 1997 to 1999 until he was pardoned by then President Clinton? Somebody popped that up in Twitter.
I'm going to bet he didn't, but if he did, well, I'd be surprised, but anything's possible.
Very, very interesting deep dive. Now, as we head to the break, I want to talk about the other case that they did in episode 1, which was C-17 at O'Hare Airport.
Yep.
Big case. It's been covered a lot, but again, I learned stuff that I didn't know before. Now, before we head to the break, Francine Barwood, the time, Phoenix Lights seems modern to me. It's 1997. I was in Phoenix when it happened. I didn't see it. I found out about it when I got back from Phoenix on that Friday. But she was young and might I say, a quite good-looking young woman. And to see her...
You talking about Frances Barwood?
Yeah, Frances Barwood. Yeah. And to see her today, it reminds you of how long ago this actually was. This was, 25 years ago, and she's grown up. And to see the old version of her and her speaking today, it was pretty well done. And I was just taken aback. I was like, wow, that much time has gone by. I guess
next year will be a quarter of a century.
Yes. Yeah. And think about what you looked like back then and look at you now.
I had beautiful black hair and a gorgeous mullet that I preened and loved and cared for. Well, maybe not by 97. I think the mullet had kind of gone away by then, but it was a recent memory and I still missed it in 97.
Our guest tonight is Richard Dolan. We are going to do a full review and analysis of the new Showtime docuseries UFO by JJ Abrams. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Oh, I've got Fife Symington's update. We will do that when we come back. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right. 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network. KGRADB.com.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B Blend for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We are also Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan is here. We are doing a full review and analysis of Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. Now, right before the break, we were talking about former Arizona Governor Fife Symington and if he went to prison. I found this article, Richard, by the Los Angeles Times, and it says here, this is the day of his conviction after these charges were going down for almost 10 years. It says, Los Angeles Times, 1998. U.S. District Judge Roger Strand also ordered Symington to pay a $60,000 fine and serve 5 years probation. Symington was ordered to report to a minimum security federal work camp by March 20th. Symington immediately resigned as governor after his conviction, multiple counts providing false financial statements. Holding back tears and shaking, he hugged his son. He said he never meant to mislead anyone, and he should have paid closer attention to his financial statements. And the federal prosecutor said they sent a message to white-collar criminals. Okay, there you go.
So did he do?
I can't find.
Did he actually do time, or he just did like a kind of work release thing?
It looks like he went to a federal work camp for about a year. This was 1998.
Did he have to stay there, though? Do you know what I mean?
It says he got, the headline is former Arizona governor gets 2.5-year prison term. A judge ignored prosecutors' request to send former Governor Fife Symington to prison for a decade, instead sentencing him Monday to 2.5 years for lying to get millions of dollars in loans to shore up his failing real estate empire.
Okay.
There you go.
So
that's
did some time.
It looks like he did, maybe 6 months, 8 months, and then he got his pardon. Now, going back to this, because I want to get to the flavor of episode 1, but when they jumped to the Arizona, the O'Hare airport sighting above United Terminal C-17, which lasted for about 5 minutes, witnessed by dozens and dozens of people, workers, pilots, aircraft mechanics. But the one thing that they showed there, which I had never seen before, is they had 2 photographs. They had 2 images of this craft. I had seen the hole in the cloud shot before, but I've never seen shots of the craft.
The thing is that there had been those images circulated in the aftermath of that. I recall this, but there was also a lot of argument, as you would expect. Skeptics would be like, "That's not a good picture. That's nothing." So it wasn't really clear that had been resolved. But yeah, you show Leslie Kane's office, and she's got a nice picture of it hanging up there. By the way, I thought Leslie did a very fine job in that episode, as did, let's just give some credit here, John Greenwald was very strong in that episode, in my opinion. He really carried himself off very well. Diana Pasulka, ditto. Who else? Kevin Day was at the very end of that. Who else? I think those are the main people.
That's
I think, right?
the main 3. And
yeah.
Now, the choice of Phoenix Lights and O'Hare for the possibility of ETs visiting this planet, do you think that those were the 2 strongest cases to present in episode 1?
Well, that's a good question. I think they're both great cases. I think the Phoenix Lights case has always been a strong case. And it's been covered many times. James Fox covered it in his first documentary, Out of the Blue, like 1 million years ago. And first documentary I ever appeared in. It's like a 60-second clip of a very young me without glasses for that one. I had to take them off because they reflected light into the camera. But anyway, I think the Phoenix Lights is a good one. I think O'Hare is a good case, actually.
I think Fox covered O'Hare in the same documentary. I believe so.
Well, the original version of Out of the Blue was before O'Hare. Maybe when he did a remake. I can't remember.
Out of the Blue. Or I Know What I Saw.
Yeah, that's another one. That's a different one.
Yeah. I think O'Hara was in that one, as was Leslie Kane. Okay.
Right. But anyway, just to answer your question, I think O'Hare is always a strong case. Yes, I think it's a very fine case. So, you could have picked different cases. There's the Washington, D.C. 2002 overflight. That's an amazing case. It's been kind of forgotten, but a very important case at the time. You have F-16s, not only seen by witnesses on the ground, but confirmed by the United States Air Force, chasing in, actually, I would say multiple unknown objects over D.C. airspace. The Air Force confirmed one unknown, but there were witnesses saw multiple unknowns being chased by F-16. So that's one you could have used. But, I think the choice of O'Hare is good. Stephenville would be the other one of the first decade of the 21st century. Stephenville, Texas, 2008 was another major event.
Very similar to the Phoenix Lights. That one happened during the day, but the same description of a very large black triangle craft, and seen again by multiple witnesses. It's a great case.
That's right. Unfortunately, the main journalist who covered that passed away recently. That was Angela Joyner, a really fine lady. So she would not have been available for that, but it's a great case.
Now, what did you, if you were going to make an assessment after watching episode 1, and if you can get into JJ Abrams' head, what do you think he was trying to say in episode 1?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, I would just say I think I would consider it an above average UFO treatment, for what we normally see. I mean, I don't know if it's the best I've ever seen. I wouldn't say that, but it was good. What was he trying to do? Well, I mean, one thing he definitely did was to demonstrate that UFOs are a real thing. They're not imaginary. You've got very real, serious people reporting them. He made it very clear that there were government shenanigans in hiding the truth about this and covering it up. So he hit all those points very effectively. Now, in terms of going farther, sounds like maybe you're asking, was he trying to get at, is this ET or some kind of secret tech or whatever? And I don't really think he explores that in that first episode. I didn't really get a sense that he tried to do that at all. But I think he did a very satisfactory, very decent job simply of pointing out that these are two really strong, excellent cases covered by responsible people. And there was some backstory too, actually, particularly when John Greenwald was being interviewed talking about the old Blue Book era, 1940s and 50s and 60s. They even brought out a couple of brief clips of Air Force pilots back in those days, 1940s and 50s, talking briefly about encounters that they had during that early period. I thought that was good because all too frequently, we're finding the history just being drained right out of the UFO subject. Ever since the Nimitz encounter really became a thing, ever since TTSA started promoting it, you've seen everyone just in the mainstream pretend as if UFOs first appeared in 2004. And that's a real mistake because that gives you a very skewed idea of the phenomenon, particularly when you start getting people talking about, well, this is just black budget tech that they're hiding. And that just becomes a much weaker argument when you start looking at the long history of this, where you find out, there are objects of identical performances, the Tic Tac or what happened at O'Hare in 2006. These were being reported in the 1940s and 50s. It makes it harder to make that case.
There was, this was something else without having seen at this point episodes 2, 3, and 4. I was thinking that Abrams, and I didn't know any of this, right? But I was thinking about Oumuamua. I was thinking about Avi Loeb. I was thinking about some of the science. I was thinking about the Hubble telescope and the search and SETI and so forth, that there was an opportunity for JJ to continue on the back of episode 1, where you've got multiple witnesses and evidence and photographs and video and all of that supported not only O'Hare but the Phoenix Lights, and that this ET UFO question would be then looked into as far as the science side goes. There's a spoiler alert here. None of that happened in episodes 2, 3, and 4. But I thought that...
I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. I'll honestly say. Because I think, the astronomers, I think it's great that Avi Loeb has put himself out there to support at least, the legitimacy of trying to study the possibility that there's some life here, like UFOs. But the fact is, look, astronomers have the worst track record in being able to talk intelligently about UFOs. I mean, for the most part. All right, there was J. Allen Hynek in the olden days. Okay, with him accepted. I mean, most astronomers, right up to Neil deGrasse Tyson, Carl Sagan, none of these people really spoke intelligently publicly about UFOs. Whatever they say privately is another matter. So they don't really have anything to contribute to our knowledge on this. They could if they did some homework and maybe did, a little bit of work on it. I think it would be more valuable if you want to go into the theme of space, to start looking at space-based anomalies, because there's a lot of that. And I don't hear any astronomers talking about that. So that would be, if I were to continue on with the space theme, that's where I would want to go, not the astronomers. They have not offered anything. Avi Loeb is an exception to some extent. I mean, yes, he's been positive, but who else really? There's just been there's been no intelligent conversation coming from astronomers on UFOs in ages. Since Hynek, really.
Right. And if I have a take, I felt, and you know, again, to be honest and transparent about this, I immediately called Richard and said, man, you got to check this out. Not only do you have to check this out, but I think that there is a strong, this is before we got to episodes 2, 3, and 4, right, that this is an episode, in my opinion, about ET, UFOs, and the phenomena. And I think it's one of the best things that I have seen yet. And those were my words to you, Richard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And after your viewing of it, do you agree with that, or do you think that I was a little bit too strong?
No, I think you were pretty much justified. I don't know if I would say it's the best. There's been some very good treatments of UFO in documentary form by a lot of folks over the last few years. And so, yeah, JJ Abrams is highly professional. Production values are great. But in terms of content, I don't know. I would say it was very good. It was very good. I don't know if I would say it's the best that I've ever seen, but it was certainly worthwhile. Yeah. I'm glad he handled the subject matter in that first episode nicely. It was fine.
Okay, let's move on. We're gonna. I want to, because we've got so much to cover, and I want everybody to go and watch this. So you're gonna watch episode 1, and episode 2 is equally good, but I want to skip forward to episode 3, and I want to do that for a few reasons, because, in your opinion, was episode 3 continuing what episode 1 started, or was there something different?
Okay, so now we're getting... so I had a real problem with episode 3. I'm just going to put that right out there, and we're going to hopefully discuss why. So when I watched episode 3... You know what it reminded me of? Actually, I'm just thinking of this now. Back in, I think it was like 2004, there was a UFO special hosted by Peter Jennings. Can't remember the name of it. But there was a big build-up, and I remember a lot of folks in the UFO community were like very excited about this. And what ended up happening, it was like I likened it to a balloon. You inflate the balloon for the first half of the episode, and then you deflate the balloon in the second half. That's what the Peter Jennings special did. And that's, I think, exactly what episode 3 did for me in this series. So it was a real deflation of the balloon. And the theme that was hit in episode 3 was, I guess, twofold. One was that this looked probably like U.S. secret tech. And two, that like the whole UFO phenomenon was basically created by the United States as a tool in the Cold War against the Soviets. Now, this was put out really specifically by one specific person that they interviewed. That's James Carrion, former international director of MUFON. But it was a very, like, the theme was brought out very significantly. So you're left with this feeling in that episode that the government's trying to make you believe in UFOs as a way to hide their secret technology. And I just have to say right here before you jump in, that's complete BS. That's complete, utter nonsense. So when you could only make that argument if you do the most careful cherry picking of the history that we have. First of all, for almost all of the history of the UFO phenomenon, the United States government vociferously denied the existence of UFOs to the public. All right, and not only did they deny it, they actively attempted to debunk it through the 40s, through the 50s, through the 60s. Like, this was the thing. They weren't ever promoting this. And even something like Roswell, where that was brought up as complete disinfo to be used against the Soviets. I mean, to me, that's an absurd argument. That's an absurd argument. Roswell died the day it came out as a news story and was buried for the next 30 years. No one talked about Roswell in the 1940s and 50s. And were we to believe that this whole thing was a one-day flash in the pan for a couple of newspapers in the western United States? All right. that we're going to fake out the Soviets with that. Like, no, I don't buy it for an instant. And there's nothing to hang your hat on in terms of evidence for that. Not at all. And not only that, when you start talking about Roswell witnesses, I mean, some of the most important ones were just totally ignored. I mean, Jesse Marcel Sr. was ignored. But even someone like General Thomas Dubose, who was assistant to General Roger Ramey at the press conference, where poor Jesse Marcel's looking at the balloon target that they're taking pictures of, which, by the way, Marcel said they switched out for the picture. But Thomas Dubose, years later, is interviewed by Stan Friedman, and I think possibly Kevin Randall. Dubose talked very, very openly about how that whole thing was ultra, ultra top secret, and he wasn't indicating at all that this was some disinfo against the Soviet Union, not even remotely. I mean, this is just a weak argument. It's not that the U.S. doesn't try to hide some of its tech. They brought out Richard Doty for this. Doty was very, pretty upfront, I thought, in that segment. He's like, yeah, Paul Benowitz is looking at things he wasn't supposed to be looking at. And sure, I was directed to tell him it was UFOs, or at least let him think it was, since he was predisposed to believing that. That's one thing. But to state that this is formal U.S. policy to promote a belief in UFOs year in, year out, no way. Not a chance.
It was the UFO phenomenon, Seeing is Believing by Peter Jennings.
Yes, good. Thank you for that.
On
right.
ABC.
Right.
Now, we can't continue without talking about James Carrion and who he is and how he plays into this narrative that JJ Abrams is presenting. Most people, you got to remember, James Carrion goes back to 2006 when he was the international director of MUFON through 2009. So he was on board for 3 years. But there's that. I'm going to have you comment about who James Carrion is, but virtually forgotten in the UFO world. Most people don't, unless you go back that far or are a study of UFO history and MUFON specifically, you may have never heard of James Carrion before. But here he is prominently featured in episode 3. And it was James that negotiated the deal with Bigelow Aerospace, which at the same time, NIDS was going on. So,
well, I think NIDS was done by then, weren't they?
Well, but it was. That's not what I'm suggesting here. Okay. NIDS was part of this circle of people. Is what I want to say. Right. So, so let's back up. Why was James Carrion brought out of the ashes, right? He's like the phoenix right now.
Well, I mean, certainly I do not know that. I met James a number of times. In fact, back in 2007, James invited myself, Stanton Friedman, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, a number of other researchers out to, where were we? I think out to Denver or Boulder, wherever we were, out to where he was for an extended study, like a UFO study. It was actually quite interesting. We all had a good time. I have nothing against James personally. I've had, fine interactions with him. But when he started talking about really the awful nature of UFO researchers, I mean, he just spoke with total contempt about UFO research. I was thinking, wow, what do you think of me? What did you actually think of me all this time? Or Stanton or Bruce or a number of other folks. But having said all of that, yeah, I mean, James, I don't remember what his job was before. He had an intelligence community background. I can't remember if it was Navy or NSA. It was one of those. Someone can look that up too. And that doesn't, look, I'm not trying to smear him and impugn him and saying, oh, well, he's an intelligence guy coming into the UFOs. But he was an intelligence guy coming into that field. And then, he becomes international director when John Schuessler was just not able to do it anymore. John was a great guy. But anyway, so James did that for a few years and did make waves. This is just historical record. Like, James was clearly a very skeptical director of MUFON even back then. People Like, I think after a year or two, it was very evident to me as an outsider, I was never a member of MUFON, that there were a lot of unhappy MUFON members with James. He had an attitude about Roswell where he was really coming up with a very non-ET explanation for that. That made a lot of folks unhappy. So James, was his own guy. He had his own perspective on this, and I can respect that. But yeah, then he left the field and really, to my perspective, seemed to have a chip on his shoulder against ufology. I mean, I'm just going to say that. And again, this is not me trying to demean him in any way, but that was always my impression, that he had something against ufology. And he certainly continued that in his statements in episode 3,
He said some pretty remarkable things.
A religion, I think.
Yes, he a couple of times.
Which is really demeaning, actually. That's really essentially calling it a religion and stating that, the researchers are not amenable to facts.
So
it's like a belief system only.
So he negotiates this deal with Bigelow.
He talked about the deal.
And this was the point.
That was good.
ATIP goes through. This is 2007. It gets funded. He confronts Bigelow that he wants to know if the funding coming from Bigelow into MUFON, if it was coming from an agency.
Yeah, this is a really key connection here. So with ATIP, we all know about ATIP and Bigelow as a contractor, and we all remember that at the same time MUFON was contracting with Bigelow. And what Bigelow wanted from MUFON, at least this was my understanding, and James Carrion didn't really contradict this, Bigelow wanted access to MUFON's current sightings.
Immediate,
investigate them.
Like they would go out, they would send out these teams within 24 hours, collect the data, and the choice stuff would get written up and sent to Bigelow.
Yeah, Bigelow is basically data mining MUFON. And I mean, that seems that was as part of his ATIP contract. Like that, if we ever had any doubt that there was a connection, I think this episode confirmed that this was a direct connection. Because James Carrion's talking about this and he asking Bigelow directly, where's this money coming from, right? And Bigelow, of course, wouldn't tell him. And Carrion apparently said, is this coming from the government? And he said that Bigelow denied that, so that Bigelow lied, basically.
He said Bigelow gave him a direct answer and said no.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, this episode 3 was crazy town for me, and it was the opposite, in my opinion, of what JJ Abrams started to present in episode 1. We get to episode 3, and now Abrams is suggesting, I'm just saying, you watch the episode yourself, that all of this may be an op. And
a big psyop by the U.S. government.
A big psyop. And we're going to discuss all of this when we come back after this short break. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan and I are doing a full analysis and review of Showtime's new series, UFO, by JJ Abrams. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. This is Jimmy Church, and I invite you to attend the 20th Annual Los Angeles Conscious Life Expo live and in person this September 17th, 18th, and 19th at the LAX Airport Hilton. Connect with exhibitors, community, thought leaders, and friends as we begin to recreate the world. You can also watch the expo from the comfort of your own home. Live stream from the main stage in Los Angeles and from the main stage in London. Truly a global simulcast event broadcast around the world. Live stream and in-person expo tickets are available now. I'll be your host all weekend long from Los Angeles. And on Friday, it's my Ancient Secrets and Earth Mysteries themed segment with James Keenan, Caroline Corey, and William Henry. And on Saturday, Daniel Sheen and I sit down for a one-on-one interview live. We have an amazing lineup of 25 speakers, including Bashar, Gail Thackeray, Kimberly Meredith, Whitley Strieber, Stephen Bassett, Daniel Brinkley, and Lisa Garr. Please visit ConsciousLifeExpo.com for tickets and info. That's ConsciousLifeExpo.com and use that promo code Jimmy for a special discount. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Rhys Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Richard Dolan is here. We are doing a full analysis and review of Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. More with Richard in just a second. I just got to jump in and talk to you about Virtual Shield VPN. You've got to get your own VPN. You've got to get it today. And I'll give you one example of why you want your own VPN. Maybe you want to watch something that is not available in your country. I'm just saying you can do that with a VPN, like Ross Coulthard or Showtime. They just put up UFO. Nobody could see it in other countries. And then I started to see, yeah, but I've got Virtual Shield VPN. I saw the comments. They were able to watch it. Don't you? Get Virtual Shield VPN today. It's all simple to do. Click on the link in the video description box below. 50% off today. It's that simple. Go over to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the banners. 50% off today. Punch in virtualshield.com/fade to black in your browser. Takes you straight there. 50% off today. And you'll get to enjoy UFO by Showtime that we are reviewing right now. Richard, now,
yes.
Going back to Carrion, and he
present in a very direct fashion his reasons for this. And what he does say, and I found this interesting, was that he was invited out to Bass, to Bigelow Aerospace. He drives out, he goes in, has a meeting, and sits down and says who was in the room. The names escape me now, but I think he said Putoff was there.
Putoff and Valet.
Yeah,
were there.
and Jacques Valet. And he said a couple of other people that he didn't recognize.
That's right. Yeah, so like they were presented in the show as mysterious. Maybe they were, maybe they were not. We don't know.
And he's there with his team from MUFON. I went back and did some research about who was with James, but it was the normal MUFON team, and that was pretty interesting. So he goes and he negotiates this deal. It's $50,000 a month forever, right? Like forever. This was going to be contribute. And I just always thought about, and going back to those, that $50,000 isn't a whole lot of money coming from a billionaire. And if it came from this $22 million fund that was ATIP, that's another thing. Bigelow said it was an anonymous supporter, right?
Right. Yeah, that's essentially right. That's how it was portrayed in the show.
Now, and
you think about it from that point of view, like 50,000 wouldn't be a lot to a lot of organizations. But first of all, MUFON's always been on a shoestring budget. And then from Bigelow's point of view, like you just have to say, if you're Robert Bigelow and you want to fund MUFON, how much are you going to really trust MUFON to do a great job with this? It's not like they've got bad people, but MUFON, like it would take a lot of like serious training and dedication and trust to put a lot more money to think you're going to get, what would you expect to get out of it? And the idea was, and in fact, this I know was one of the complaints that Bigelow had in the aftermath. He's like, his attitude is, we're throwing this money at MUFON and we're not getting anything really professional out of them. And I mean, so you get this acrimony that happens in the whole breakup of that relationship. But you could definitely see, like, if I were funding MUFON, I would want to make sure that I want to get my money's worth if I'm going to throw it more than $50K down a month.
Now, and Carrion says a couple of remarkable things at this point. One was that Bigelow would then have access to the MUFON database, number one.
Right.
Number two, he would have access to the best cases. But that number three, that MUFON and its members were there because this was independent of the government. It was a civilian-based organization from the word go, from the way that it was intended to be going back to 1969, 1970. Yeah. And that the people, the members of MUFON, would probably freak out if they found out that their cases were being shared with the possibility of a secret government organization that was propping up Bigelow. And
now you're bringing out accurate history, but none of this was really portrayed very clearly in the show. I mean, I would just make that case, like there was a different angle that was given. The angle that you're saying and that I agree with. I mean, I look at that whole arrangement as Bigelow data mining MUFON as part of the ATIP contract, which actually makes sense. Like if you're Bigelow, that would make perfect sense. You're gathering information for guys like Lou Elizondo and the folks at ATIP. And so what do you want to do? Well, one thing you'll do is you'll hire Putoff to, requisition advanced scientific papers from scientists around the world on future science. And apparently they did the same thing with MUFON. Yes. But then you would want to connect with MUFON just to see, like, what's MUFON getting? What cases are they getting that would be of scientific value to research? Like, now, that actually would make perfect sense if you're Bigelow working on this contract. Now, don't you think so?
Well, it's the answer, the short and quick answer is, of course, yes. But then there was another statement from James Carrion, and we haven't heard from James in years, right? Like, I don't know how they chased him down and convinced him to come on.
He has
the
a
show.
blog.
Yeah, he does have a blog, and I went back and read a bunch of it, and it's all about the CIA and intelligence. But that's another discussion later. Nothing on his blog about UFOs that I saw, and I found that interesting. But anyway, so going back to his statement, which was the ATIP program, which folded into TTSA, and having
I would be careful about that.
But this is what
ATIP did not fold into TTSA.
But this is that's not me saying it. This is what he said, and he said all of this is an op.
Correct.
And
he did say
that is how. And so if anybody is in a position to make this kind of comment, is James Carrion qualified to go that far into calling
he's just
this an
offering
op?
his opinion. Anyone can have an opinion. But did he, I don't recall this, but in the show, did he actually offer what his opinion of what the op actually was? I mean, he offered the opinion that in the early years, the op was to fake out the Soviets as part of the Cold War. In fact, it wasn't just him. There was a woman, she taught in, Penn State? I cannot remember her name. Cole? Can't remember her name. They had this other person.
In the series,
Kohler.
Yeah. She was pretty interesting and pretty well versed in UFO lore and history.
I found her very dismissive of UFO research in
Yes,
general.
like
Arrogantly dismissive.
Yes.
Arrogantly dismissive.
That was easy to read with her. But this is what, again, in watching episode 3, which I've seen twice. I've seen episode 3 times now. I've seen episode 4 twice. Is that
I just think you're better than everyone else because you've seen it so many times.
That's right. So I'm definitive, man. I'm definitive. Is that what they were? JJ Abrams was trying to project is that UFOs, in any fashion, are there as a necessity for the government to have a cover for their technology and the terrestrial aspect of what the reality of UFOs are.
That did make that claim, but it's total, utter nonsense, and I'm going to tell you why.
Well, but do you agree that that's what episode 3 tried to say?
Yes, I agree. That's what it tried to say. And here's the irony of that episode. They're all talking about disinformation. That episode was disinformation. All right. That episode, to me, I watched that and I thought I'm watching disinformation here. Because none of it is genuinely historical. The history that was presented there was so skewed, so inaccurate. I would actually, at times, I would say dishonest. And that's a harsh thing to say, and it sounds like an accusation. And maybe it wasn't intentionally dishonest. Maybe it wasn't. I can't know. I'm not inside their heads. But I will say, when you're making the case that the U.S. has got this secret black budget tech that's super advanced, sci-fi advanced, and you're using it to basically harass your own Navy, which was absolutely suggested for the Nimitz incident. Well, let's just wind the clock back a little bit. Let's go back to the 1990s, 1980s, 1960s, 1950s, 1940s. Is anyone really going to suggest that the United States has had a black budget world that invented flying saucers in the 1940s and has been pissing off the Navy and the Air Force ever since, and no one's the wiser? And violating airspace over sensitive locations, dealing with nukes again and again and again and again. Oh yeah, and by the way, doing it over the Soviet Union too, and just getting them worked up, and over every other country in the world in the 1940s and 50s. I mean, because don't cherry pick the damn information, which is what they're doing here. Mm-hmm. And it's dishonest. It's misleading. And, this is part of the problem where everyone's pretending like UFOs were invented in 2004, for God's sake. And it's not so. There are objects of equal, if not even sometimes greater capabilities in the Tic Tac that were recorded in the 1940s. We have reports of objects There was one example, White Sands, April 1949. Your Navy's launching a missile out of White Sands. It achieves a speed of 1,300 miles per hour, at which point, and this is being filmed, okay? I think two white objects circle around the missile as it achieves a speed. They seem to merge and then fly off. And I can't remember if that was a missile that crashed or not. No, that wasn't. But there were other examples. I think an Atlas missile in 1964 where it did actually crash after another UFO was filmed going around that one.
And I think that was Vandenberg. Yes. And
these things happen.
They do.
Let's like look at the grand evidence here and then make an assessment rather than just pick the little facts that fit your narrative of the story that you're trying to tell the world. I consider that narrative to be disinformation. And it really starts to annoy me because I hear over the last few years, everyone's saying disinformation. They're hiding something. Well, you know what? Maybe that argument is the disinformation.
Now,
because maybe there is something here that doesn't belong to us. And you got these folks trying to say, oh, it's our own tech. BS. I'm calling bullshit on that.
Well,
okay?
If you go back to episode 1, and you've got Diana Pasulka, who was great at presenting the religious narrative of this, going back to angels and invisibility of these beings, and how the Vatican continued to correct and adjust, not only the historical side of this, but the way that it is being presented today, that the phenomenon is real, and it goes back thousands of years and has been reported throughout history.
Here's my only problem with her appearance on the show. I had nothing against Diana Pasulka at all. I thought she was very cogent. She's very intelligent. Everything she said was on point in relation to the research she does. My only quibble is that her inclusion on the show didn't, in my opinion, this is just me, didn't really fit the content of the rest of the show.
No,
what she was doing was really out in a totally different place, and I'm not sure it really worked.
But this is my point with that, though. What JJ was setting up in the beginning is the historical perspective of ETs visiting Earth, and this has been going on for a long time. When you get to...
With no evidence presented during the show to that effect. I mean, this has to be said. You have her making this statement, and yes, of course, we all know there is evidence, or at least there's reason to consider certain things as evidence for ancient visitation. We don't really have. No one was doing reports 500, 1,000 years ago. There was no independent UFO investigation.
No, but what they did.
So what we got are stories that are interesting.
But they did show sculpture. They did show paintings, and they showed the way that this was represented historically.
But it didn't fit with the rest of the narrative, I thought.
But it was the suggestion in episode 1 that this was an ET phenomenon that has a historical record, and
ET or something else extraordinary.
Right. And then you get to episode 3, and you've got a complete flip-flop of what JJ and his producers did in episode 1.
Good point, yes.
That's the part for me. When I called you up and I said, Richard, you're going to see episode 3, man, and you're not going to be happy with
more
this.
Work for me, thanks.
Yes. And when I told you what I thought episode 3 represented, I think after seeing episode 1, you almost didn't believe me. I was like, no, they didn't go there.
Did I do that? I can't remember. I don't remember anything anymore. My brain just mush, but... no, I believed you. By the end of our conversation, I was like, okay, church is onto something here. And you were right. I mean, it was a very, episode 3 was very in your face and kind of insulting. I just have to say, like, for people who are serious researchers into the UFO subject, some of it just wasn't complimentary to the UFO community at all.
No. And this is okay. Now I'm going to say something controversial. I don't know this is fact. Okay. I'm only suggesting an idea here, but it's this. When you have George Knapp apparently talking about an alternative narrative of disinformation, suggesting UFOs when it is a cover-up of U.S. tech, I question that. I don't know if that was what George actually said or was there some clever editing there? I would
Right.
love to
We
hear.
can talk about that.
Yeah, I would love to hear George's comments. And the same thing with Leslie Kane, and the same thing. So they bring on Richard Doty, who talks about, drones and technology and the need to inject a UFO narrative into this so we can cover up our actual tech. We had to do that at Kirkland. There was no way we were going to let the world know that we had lasers blinding Soviet satellites as they passed over Kirkland. No, we're going to say that that's UFOs at Kirkland, and we're okay with that. That's the tone there. Do you think that was certainly in the case with George Knapp? And if you're listening, or somebody can reach out to you, were you actually saying that, or was that some clever editing that allowed this? Because we all know you can do that in editing. And, and George, I know George.
Yes,
we know Leslie. To suggest this in the way that they did, I don't know.
I wonder if it was a bit of dishonest editing, I have to say. I mean, look, when you're sitting in front of a camera, we've both been there, you got no control over how that editing process goes. And those conversations when you're being interviewed, they can go all over the place and go in a lot of different directions. And, a very small amount usually ends up in a program. Like small percentage, frankly.
Yeah, you sit down for 4 hours and you get 5 minutes of screen time.
That's right. That's typical. But one thing we have to acknowledge is that, yes, like there is black budget tech. I think we all can recognize that. And in fact, it's very possibly highly advanced. And I would be the last one to deny that. I coined the phrase breakaway civilization over a decade ago. I have often believed or at least speculated that there's a very, very advanced contingent in the black budget world that's out there that's got very advanced tech. So that's totally possible. But the real question to ask is that if there is a breakaway civilization, is their mission just to harass the United States military or the militaries of the world? Is that what they're doing around the world every day? That I have a lot of skepticism about that. So, but for George Knapp, or I'm guessing, I can't remember, but probably John Greenwald said the similar things.
Yes.
And, both of them did a very good job. I really, if they are listening, I want them both to know. But, yeah, I mean, there was definitely this idea that was promoted that a lot of these UFOs are just black budget tech. And I don't know how George really thinks about that. George certainly, look, this is the guy who broke the Bob Lazar story, the guy who is at S4 and sees us working on flying saucers. And George has interviewed, by his own count, at least 24 other people who have corroborated various parts of Bob Lazar's story, for at Area 51 or S4 or wherever. So he knows full well that there is a technology program in Nevada and probably elsewhere where we've got scientists trying to work on this exotic tech. So I don't think he would deny that, and I'm sure John, would say the same thing. You have to get him on your show, and you can ask them yourself. But the real question is, like, why would they be happy with their portrayal? I'd be curious to know if they're happy with their portrayal in that episode. If I were interviewed, I would not be happy.
I would not be happy either. And
if I were portrayed that way, I would not.
I remember I was just sitting back going, does George know what he's really saying here? The implications of this intention. I think John Greenwald might have been taken out of context because I don't want to say anything more about this. I'm just giving my own opinion. But it seemed like they were steadfast in their opinions of this, that the majority of UFOs are being used as a cover-up intentionally over U.S. tech and programs that are going on, including the Tic Tac. And that's
right.
And the comments about TTSA being used as a vehicle to help support this narrative. And And there were comments that were there about the staff of TTSA and who was.
I would almost say that they were smeared.
Yeah,
I would almost say that episode smeared Putoff and Valet.
Yes,
actually,
yes,
it came really close.
Well, when he mentioned, CIA operatives that were inside of the UFO community, the two images they flashed up on the screen were Putoff and Valet.
Right. And I mean, now Putoff, everyone knows, had a contract with CIA. That's well known.
Yes.
That contract lasted only 2 years. We were talking early 1970s out of Stanford Research Institute. And then that contract, as far as we know, transferred over to the Pentagon or the military out of CIA. But yeah, I mean, and everyone knows how Putoff's he's had over 50 years of sensitive compartmented, clearances. I mean, him and Kate Green both have more than half a century of very, very high-level security clearances. So that's all well known. I have known Hal Putoff for over 20 years. And yes, I've known the man's background. And I make no bones. I've liked Hal for many years, and I respect him. And I don't think he's trying to screw with the UFO field. I've never believed that. If I turn out to be proven wrong one day, I will make a mea culpa, but I just don't believe it. He hasn't told me everything I want to know. In fact, he usually doesn't tell me the things I want to know. But conversations I've had with him, I've found him to be someone of integrity, and I've never felt he lied to me. He's never lied to me.
We're gonna take a break right here. I'm gonna come back and discuss episode 4. Do you by saying that episode 3 was disinformation when it was an episode about disinformation is pretty interesting, isn't it?
I consider that episode to be the disinformation. They're talking about disinfo, but I consider that episode to be disinfo.
And I thought,
whether intentionally or not, I don't know.
I thought it was interesting that if you're going to talk about the possibilities of disinformation and how this happens, then they bring on Richard Doty, who I spoke to yesterday about this at length. I called him immediately. To bring on a guy that was part of the Air Force and OSI and disinformation using members of the UFO community. And it presents that as evidence that this goes on. Again, a very interesting choice by JJ Abrams.
I know you're about to go to break, but I just got to say this. They're saying that the U.S. government is promoting UFOs to hide its secret tech.
Yes.
And again, I just want to emphasize the opposite is actually the truth. The United States government denied, debunked UFOs for decades and decades. All right. They did the opposite of trying to promote UFO belief. And in fact, that continued well into the 21st century. And up until it continued till 2017 and beyond, when they started making their admissions.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Richard Bleepin' Dolan. We are doing a full analysis and review of Showtime's new series, UFO, by JJ Abrams. When we come back, you know what we're going to get into? The folklore, the mythology, and who came up next in episode 4. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to getthetea.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's getthetea.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRAradio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Richard Dolan, who during the break is playing harmonica. And I had heard over the years that you play a mean harp.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't do it.
No.
Don't do it. We don't need.
No, I enjoy my harmonicas. Yes. I enjoy it very much.
You look like you were enjoying it.
I get into it.
Now this is where I don't want to discourage anybody from watching UFO. You need to watch it and check it out. The production value is extremely high. The editing, the framing, the cinematography, the music, the soundscape, all of that is excellent. It's excellent, and it is very thought-provoking. And like I said, episode 1, right there. Episode 2, right there. Right there. It's cool. I really enjoyed it. Episode 3 rolls around, and I had a serious WTF moment. It was like, what is actually going on? What's the message? Then we get to episode 4. And I don't have the professor's name in front of me. I think he was Armenian, actually, from his last name. and which I thought was pretty cool and very interesting.
This is the historian from Penn State,
Yes,
I think.
yes. And he then starts to present his case about people's minds and the power of suggestion. He goes into this in depth, but before we start to break this down, what he suggested from the word go is that this is imagination, right? And historically, this is always...
Well, by now we're talking about abductions.
They get to abductions. Yes. Right. But he was talking about UFOs in general in society. Yeah. And so when he starts to lay this out, I know my reaction. I mean, what was yours? Like, what was going through your mind?
Well, I would just say I reacted to episode 4, and I did watch it. There's two ways that you can react. One is intellectually in terms of content, but for me, I actually reacted to it artistically, and I thought artistically it sort of fell flat. And I say that because it didn't have... You go back 2,500 years, and there was a fellow named Aristotle. He talked about unity in a production. So it didn't have Aristotelian unity. So I actually feel that it just bounced all over the place. And I didn't like that. I was like, what's he trying to do in this episode? And to me, that was actually never clear. So when I'm watching an episode of anything, whether it's a movie or a TV show or a documentary, I want to know, like, what's the focus here? And to me, episode 4 really did not have a proper focus. It bounced around way too much. There was a lot of abductions, but I didn't know where they're going. There was a lot of psychosocial type of explanations of the phenomenon in that particular episode, such as that professor. And there was a woman, and what was her name? Kate Dorsch was in there. And I thought she was the one who was most dismissive of the subject, in my opinion. And she actually struck me as a bit of a totalitarian toward the end. She makes this statement, it's not good to sow distrust in our major institutions. Jesus, man, we've been hearing a lot of that lately. I don't think I want any more of that in my face. I don't think I want people telling me, oh, yeah, don't. And she's actually brought up Brexit and post-Trump. She's like, in this age, we don't want to sow distrust in our major institutions. I want to punch her right in the face after that. Like, who do you think you are? Just shut up, go back into your hole. Don't tell me that we're not supposed to sow distrust in our major institutions, which have been lying to us for 75 years. It's like, who brought her into the game? Like, that was the most useless statement of the entire 4 episodes. I found it actually offensive. I don't get offended easily. I was offended by that.
Now,
right? When we're looking at demonetization, YouTube canceling, Facebook. Look, we're in full-blown totalitarian mode here. All right, we don't need anyone else egging them on, which is what she did.
Now, they bring up the 2K, but as they started to get into abductions, they bring in...
You're bringing it back here. Okay, good. Calm down.
Yeah. No. Well, but what they did, I'll stay on your point. They did these cutaways, to President Trump. And I thought, why are you going here? It's not needed. And they didn't talk about Trump and UFOs. They didn't talk about that. They didn't talk about him being questioned. They didn't talk about Tucker Carlson and the other, I think it was George Stephanopoulos and Trump's own son all asked Trump, right? They didn't go there. They were just talking about conspiracy theories and mistrust by...
Yeah, they used the phrase conspiracy theory a few times in that episode.
Yes.
That's always a bad thing.
Yes. So now
they didn't use it ironically. That's the thing. They were using it straight up.
Now, and they bring in Travis Walton, and they bring in Betty and Barney Hill.
Yes, right.
And they did 2 aspects of Betty and Barney Hill, and one of them, and they did this with a card up on the screen, suggesting that Betty and Barney Hill faked the entire thing because they were an interracial couple. Right?
Well, faked is too strong a word, because no one The implication, their hypnotherapist for that was a guy named Benjamin Simon.
Yes.
Back in the 60s. And he was a big shot psychotherapist, worked for the U.S. Army. He was a major, of course, he had no experience with UFO abductions. Who did? No one did. So this was a new thing for him. And yes, his theory, at least, I don't know if he had it the whole time, but I mean, they were an interracial couple in the early 60s. That is a stressful thing. So, or easily could have been, probably was. And so, yeah, his theory was that somehow that stress related to their story. But he actually also stated he believed that they were truthful.
Which
so
came
he didn't
out
think that
later.
they made it up.
Which came out later. The Travis Walton aspect was brought up, that case. And then they bring in Calvin Parker and Pascagoula.
Yes.
Right now,
that's right.
And the overall bent, the flavor that I felt was being presented in these three cases, that the abduction phenomena in general, and they interjected other abductees in some of their statements that they had made, that this was all crazy talk. And I
sort of, they were sympathetic though to the people, like the actual statements about Betty and Barney Hill, or I don't remember if they really discussed Travis Walton very much. But, I mean, there was no overt insult. I mean, like, no one was demeaning the Hills, right? I mean, no one was saying overtly bad things about them. The impression you get, it's a different form of debunkery. So it's a nice debunkery. It's polite. It's respectful debunkery.
Well, and the
that's
way
really
that
what it was, don't you think?
And the way that the historian from Penn State, his name escapes me, said that you can look at this in time capsules for different parts of modern history where at one point abductions were happening outside of your home. And then at the next point, it was happening in remote areas. Then they bring up Pascagoula and Calvin Parker. And then he goes, and then suddenly in the 1980s, abduction is happening in our bedrooms. And we have to look at why and what it was going on.
Except he's kind of wrong.
But this is the way. Remember,
but that's exactly what he said.
That's exactly what he said. And they go to a clip of an abductee, very briefly, when she says, and they selected this for a reason, because she sounds crazy. And if you're seeing this as a viewer, and you get this overall context of the way that this is being presented, Richard, she says, yeah, well, they come to me in my bedroom, and every time they are here, they're only behind me when my back is turned, right? No matter what. And it was like this, and nothing to do with anything, but they present it that way because, well, you know what? Abductions are crazy talk, and this is why.
Yeah. But I mean, to bring up the gosh, I wish I could remember that historian's name too. There's a value in looking at the psychosocial element of this, and including abductions. There is an evolution in how these beings are reported. I mean, I've wondered about this many times myself. In the 1940s and 50s, there were claims of sightings of beings, particularly starting in 1954 in Europe and in South America. They were short. But they weren't classic grays. Now, you get a kind of an evolution of description through the 60s that leads to the classic grays. And that's a bit troubling. So it's very easy to ask yourself, are people seeing what is their understanding of what they think an alien's supposed to look like? I mean, it's impossible to ignore asking that when you look at the 70-plus year history of sightings of alien beings, which back in the day were called humanoids. They weren't even called aliens. There is a bit of an evolution. Having said that, there also are consistencies, but there's a lot of variety. And so some of that variety, you absolutely have to ask, are there cultural dimensions to this phenomenon? I mean, it just has to be asked, has to be explored. And I have tried to explore it on my own, and sometimes I've written about it too. And the thing is, I do believe that there are cultural dimensions, but that they're not the dominant element. Like, these beings, I personally am convinced, have the ability to screw with our cognitive abilities, and they have the ability to manage our memory and to screw with our memory. So we're not at our best when we encounter them. They know how to deal with us. And we shouldn't be surprised. Our own intelligence and military communities, they know how to screw with your mind too. They've been working on this for ages. So if there's another advanced group that's here, they could do some kind of memory fogging, and maybe you would interpret it as a being that's got antennas on his head, which people sometimes saw that back in the 50s. Antennas, like, My Favorite Martian. That was an old TV show. So there's a value. I'm just saying, I'm defending this man to some extent here. There's a value in asking to what extent are cultural determinants involved here and how we perceive this phenomenon. I think it has to be asked. And Americans are generally disinclined to go there. Europeans are much more interested, especially the Brits. They have a long history of this school of thought. So, but having said that, I do not believe, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me, I don't believe that that's the full and final explanation of what people are dealing with. Betty and Barney Hill, my opinion, strong opinion here, they were abducted. They were taken. And Travis Walton, that man was taken. He was with a bunch of other guys. They all took polys, by the way. Polygraph. Did you see a UFO? Yes. Did you see Travis Walton get hit by a blue beam of light? Yes. They all passed. They're not lying about this. So there are abduction cases, I think, that are just too strong to dismiss. And this episode did not provide any of that evidence at all. Not at all. They made it look like it was fantasy.
Yeah, they made it look like it was fantasy. So if we go back and we look at an overall assessment of this four-part, high-dollar, big-time Hollywood production. This is 4 episodes from JJ Abrams, who's, great movies over the years. There's no question about it. But he's definitely putting his reputation on the line. So if we
and ask, is this disinformation too? This episode.
So
I'm going to say maybe it is.
So how do we start to give an overall assessment of this presentation? From episode 1 to episode 4. If you were going to give it a rating, how would you rate it now?
Well, we mentioned the Peter Jennings UFO seeing is believing. I think this follows a very similar pattern to that. And in fact, it follows the pattern to the classic 1966 Walter Cronkite thing on UFOs that was sponsored by the CIA and the Robertson Panel recommendations, which a young Carl Sagan appeared on. In fact, that was featured in one of the episodes, that shot of Cronkite. Can't remember which episode, maybe the first one. That was explicit intelligence community disinformation back in 1966. Was it UFOs, Fact or Fantasy, I think it was called. And this series by Abrams, I'm really going to be thinking about this because, I've only just seen it, and I only scrubbed through episode 2. That was the one that I skimmed. I watched the other 3. But it follows a pattern that the other 2 documentaries I mentioned follow, which is that you inflate the balloon in the first half and you deflate that damn thing in the second half. So it's like you build up this sense of a real interesting phenomenon, and then you spend the whole second half of whatever you're doing taking the air out of it, which really does seem like what he did. And to me, think about it. What he's saying is, there's a real UFO phenomenon, but it's not aliens and there are no abductions. That's essentially the message you're getting, that we've got advanced tech. That seems to be the message. And to me, that's a message. If that's the message, that is disinformation. That's a lie.
And by using Diana Pasulka and Leslie Kean and George Knapp so prominently through this, including Kevin Day, who came
across very well.
Yeah. Kevin Day.
Very well.
Almost, Kevin Day, it comes across, a little melancholy about this. I think that he was thrust into something that he wasn't comfortable with. The spotlight is on him, and he's got questions, and I think that his own government has failed him, and he, I think he says at one point, "I lost everything."
Kevin is a hell of a guy.
And he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
What a decent human being, honest as the day is long, and he's, and he was operating radar. He was the chief radar guy on the Princeton and tracking these UFOs, the Tic Tac UFOs. He's an absolutely superb human being. But yeah, I think he seems like he's had a rough time.
Now, Ralph Blumenthal. Also,
Yes.
we can't let him escape us. And the way that he was featured. Now, if this
he also came across very well, I thought.
He's great. He's great.
Absolutely.
But are they all? I don't want to say tools, but it's even suggested in this documentary that Tom DeLonge was the useful idiot, and I believe that was the words that were used.
Carrion used that word.
Yeah, Carrion. And so, is history going to look back at this series, as bending the truth somewhat, and using some of these very credible people in this to support this disinformation? I'm going to just say this straight out because I'm feeling a little uncomfortable after watching all 4 episodes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, the last 2 episodes actually were unsatisfying, and very subtle, very sophisticated forms of debunkery. I think so. That's how I read it.
And
not ham-fisted debunking of the old school.
And James Carrion, if there's one quote from this that will continue on, is he goes, "Look, I'm not a skeptic, and I'm not a debunker." Right? James Carrion says that straight into the camera.
He said he was a truth seeker.
Yes, he's a truth seeker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
maybe he is. I mean, look, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Who am I to call someone out as being dishonest? Like, I'm not going to do that, and I don't know. He could be very sincere. In fact, I think I've never had reason to think that he believes anything other than what he has said, honestly.
I'm not saying anything negative.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything negative about James
So
Carrion.
by his way of looking at it, he is a truth seeker.
Right. And the historical perspective about James is he was there. He was there. 2006, right. Bigelow, 2007, 2008. He leaves MUFON in 2009. Who? Clifton?
Clifford Clift.
Yeah, Clifford Clift came in temporarily and
I got
took
a funny
over.
story about that that's relevant to this conversation.
Yeah, go ahead.
When Clifford came on as the new director, I met him shortly after that, and he asked me. He took me aside. I wasn't a MUFON member, but he said, "Hey, I'm new here, and I would just like to know if you have any advice." And I said, "Yes, I would like you to clear every intelligence operative out of MUFON that you can. Get them the hell out." That's what I said to him, and he gave me this look, like, "What the hell are you? I can't do that." Like, he just seemed overwhelmed by what I said, but I absolutely said that to him. And he never asked my opinion ever again after that.
I've had some communication with him over the years. Genuine guy, cool guy.
Yeah, I pissed him off wicked good actually at the 2011 MUFON conference. Absolutely, got him so mad. I'll just tell this is just a fun story. The hell was I doing? Oh yeah, so I was there to do a secret space lecture. I think it was like my first major secret space type lecture. And I cut it short 15 minutes, and I spent the last 15 minutes, because at that time, MUFON was in the midst of a mutiny. There were claims, Chase Kletsky, Elaine Douglas, the late Elaine Douglas, may she rest in peace, and James Clarkson, actually had all gone on Jerry Pippin's show. at that time, talking about how MUFON was hiding data from its members, and like there was this big thing, and it was like, and all those, like Elaine got booted out of the MUFON conference that year. So anyway, I'm there, and I said I'm spending the last 15 minutes, and I'm going to talk about how MUFON needs to reform. And at the end of it, I was taken out of the woodshed in the back room, and Clifford was there. And I heard that Clifford, two people said to me, Clifford like turned purple, and he said, Dolan is never speaking at another effing conference here ever again. And he didn't say effing. So, and I didn't speak at MUFON for the next quite a few years.
Yeah, well, okay, another side note to history. So I call up Richard. I'm speaking at MUFON. I'm doing the keynote on like Friday night. And I call up Richard, and I said, hey, man, you want to do MUFON with me and just come up on stage? And you go, Jimmy,
I don't remember this.
This was, everything. Yeah. I was doing the Hangar One thing, and we were bringing out the cast, and you were like, you know what? Not this year, man. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Well, you know, it's just like I got tired. I got really down on MUFON after a while, and just, I mean, honestly, it was just more work than it was worth to do a lot of the conferences. There's good people there, great people actually, but it wasn't worth it. I was too busy anyway, and so they're gonna blackball me unofficially for a few years, and they're just
and then invite you back, and I thought I could talk you into it, but. I ended up going solo. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So anyway, footnote.
Are we getting off track here? I don't want to.
No. Well, so I guess the overall take, though. I mean, how do you think history, 3-4 years from now, is going to look back at this, and not only, the community and the world looking at this series, but the participants. You know, I couldn't get anybody to come on the show tonight to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole story there. We're going to have to figure out the reason for that, or you can do that. But yeah, like why they wouldn't do it. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
That was a whole list of pass, from friends. I was like, what?
Yeah. You know what you have to do in the future? This is my advice to you. You just say the following sentence. Hey, do you know who I am? That always works. People love that. They respond positively to that.
Oh, they do, don't they?
I assume. Yeah. Just tell them how important you are. And like, I'm Jimmy Church. Just do that. That might do the trick. But no, seriously, your question, like, how will this be perceived? And I believe, and I think many people listening probably believe, that there is very advanced technology that is in places like Area 51 or S4 or elsewhere, Tonopah, probably a lot of other places. Yes, very likely. The real question, though, is does that explain our UFO phenomenon? And I just have to say the answer certainly appears to be no, every level that I look at it. So I think I don't think history is going to be kind to this series for that reason. And also with abductions. They like John Mack was a big part of that. And Ralph Blumenthal talked about John Mack. He wrote a book about John Mack. Blumenthal's very sympathetic to John Mack. But the way that they portrayed John Mack, and to a lesser extent Bud Hopkins, was like, you get the sense that they were deluded. Like there was that whole point about, well, a psychiatrist is supposed to believe his people. He's supposed to identify with them. And so there's this gentle way of sort of saying to people, yeah, John Mack, nice guy, smart guy, but he went a little off the rails. Like that's really the impression the show gives you about John Mack.
Yes.
And I think that's demeaning, frankly. It wasn't entirely that way. There were enough clips of John Mack speaking where you get at least a decent sense of the man. So, but no, I think, when you have a beautifully done series that's essentially saying, yes, the UFO phenomenon is real. There's a real phenomenon there, but doesn't look like it's aliens and no one's being abducted. That's the message.
That is the message.
Take away. And to me, that's disinformation.
They could have, you take the 60 Minutes approach to this where you clearly and simply and succinctly present both sides of the story so everybody can understand what is going on. You've got this and you've got this. Now let's talk about it. They didn't do that with abductions. That immediately got off on the wrong foot, and they stayed with that. They didn't talk about the amount of people that have, the amount of evidence, all of it. They did the testament. They didn't talk about any of that.
Well, yeah, they could have gone into, like, they talked about Betty and Barney Hill, but actually they did a very superficial job of talking about Betty and Barney Hill, frankly. Ditto Travis Walton. Those cases were discussed, but they were very superficially covered. So the actual evidence that would make you think, holy crap, they were taken, none of that was presented.
No, and the tapes, the audio that they presented from Betty and Barney Hill, a short clip of Betty and a short clip of Barney, absolutely presented them as crazy people, and I found that very offensive.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yes, my sense is that they had been portrayed somewhat sympathetically. But that thing you're talking about, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Betty talking about the size of the needle. Right? What does that have to do with anything? It just makes her sound crazy. And then Barney freaking out that he had to go find his gun. That was the clip that they used, right?
The reality is that Barney was deeply upset and traumatized by the event. And during the regressions, Barney in particular it was very upsetting for him.
It was upsetting for me. It was upsetting. When you listen to those tapes of Barney Hill,
and Betty too, actually.
Yeah, you can't help but be uncomfortable and empathetic, and also there was great detail that was in those sessions. I mean, it was cinematic, but instead they used the clip of Barney yelling that he's got to find his gun.
Yeah, that's actually thinking. I hadn't really considered it until we're talking about it, but I think the treatments were very superficial, and really the emphasis was on. Honestly, this is like what the Air Force used to do with Blue Book: explain away rather than explain.
And okay, so let's back up for a second. And I know that we're running late, Richard, and I appreciate this. But if we go back to episode 1 and the way that John Greenwald presents Project Blue Book, and they go back and they analyze, one of the things that John pointed out that and I think they used a quote from J. Allen Hynek. I could be wrong, but that Project Blue Book's job wasn't to investigate UFOs. That wasn't their job. Was to explain away.
That's right. And I think UFOs. John did say that, and John was really on point about that.
Yes, he was.
He did a good job, I thought, in covering all of that, in a very succinct way. And that's true. I mean, they did make that statement in that first episode that Blue Book's job was to explain,
not to investigate.
Yeah. Blue Book didn't have the staff. I mean, there was only 1 year in Blue Book's history, 1952, under Captain Edward Ruppelt, where they actually had more than 10 guys, who were able to do any kind of investigation and reports. After that, the staff was cut down to bare bones, like nothing, like 4 or 5 people at the most.
Yeah, they had a research assistant, a secretary, Quintanilla, and Hynek.
Yeah.
And then a couple of people that came in to help from the outside.
Jacques Vallée, they utilized people over at Air Force Base in Colorado who were, there were other divisions. I think it was the 4166 Air Division that was doing UFO investigations in the late 50s. But that wasn't Blue Book. They worked with Blue Book to some extent, but that only lasted a few years anyway. Yeah, Blue Book was basically window dressing for show.
Richard, thank you so much. You've got a lot going on right now, and I'm going to close with a couple of basic questions. One, how's the new book coming?
Great. Couldn't be better.
How many pages did you do today?
I work on other things than just my next book. I have a website. I got people I want to keep happy on my website. I produce content there fairly regularly. So that takes my effort. Okay, that's important. But
well, my next question is
I'm going to be getting back to my Volume 3 work. I'd made very good progress earlier in the year on Volume 3, and I will be getting back to it.
And when do you do your live show?
I think I'm going to do one tomorrow.
On YouTube?
Yeah. I don't do them every week. The thing is, it's a lot of work for me to do. Like, I'm different from you. Like, this is your thing, and doing live radio it's not my primary thing. It's something that I like to do. I enjoy it when I do it, but it takes a lot of my time and effort, and I can't always do it every single week. So I do it when I'm able to do it. And I think I'm going to do a show tomorrow. I think it's going to be on Google's Jigsaw division, working with Rand Corporation to disable all conspiracy theories on the web. That's actually something they're doing. It's nefarious, nasty, and dangerous. And it's all about thought control, totalitarian control. Yeah, Google's connecting to the largest defense think tank in the country, which they paid them to investigate ways to prevent conspiracy theories from invading your mind. Isn't that nice?
Oh, that is
I'm going to talk
special.
about that tomorrow.
And
by the way, one of the 4 sample conspiracy theories that Rand studied for this project were UFO people.
Now, we are doing a conference coming up on the 18th, Making Contact. And
we're both part of that.
Yeah, we're both part of that. And you know what's interesting? We've got Eric Weinstein that is coming
impressive.
in.
That's nice. He's a smart guy.
That's pretty strong. And
I don't know what he knows about UFOs. I think he's a friend of Danny Sheehan, and that's I think how he was brought in, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he's also a trained physicist, and he's got a lot of pragmatic thoughts of the universe and how things work.
Very accomplished, intelligent man.
Yeah. So Eric Weinstein.
I don't know what his interest in UFOs is. That's interesting.
Well, we're going to find out. And he's going to be on Fade to Black. I don't want to give that away too quickly here. But I don't know. When you're talking to these physicists out there, I've always found it very interesting. You brought up this point earlier about astronomy intellectuals, is that they want you to understand the size of the universe, the size of the Milky Way, how many stars are out there, chemistry, and that there must be infinite amounts of life out there, right? They want you to, because it has to be that way. It's a numbers game. And then when you shift the gears to talk about alien visitation to planet Earth, that's the line in the sand, right?
Yeah, well, and in earlier years, by the way, it used to be standard for astronomers to say there's no other life in the universe. And there are still astronomers who maintain this, by the way.
Yes, there are.
They're more of a minority now. But, I brought up astronomers. Look, astronomy is wonderful. We love astronomy. It's cool. Who doesn't love astronomy? But the thing is, astronomers get a free pass that they don't deserve with UFOs. They just don't deserve it. And the reason is because we think of UFOs, okay, it's extraterrestrial, therefore astronomers must be expert. But the fact is, astronomers, where do you see UFOs? You don't see them in space usually. You see them in the atmosphere. So you want to talk to an atmospheric physicist if you're going to get scientific about it, or talk to people who study ground traces. Or how about this? Study to people who are skilled in doing actual investigations and looking at evidence of UFOs, of which there's a ton of it. Astronomers are no better qualified than anybody else. But it's this idea that we have, UFOs, extraterrestrial space, therefore astronomers. They don't know jack about UFOs. How many of them? Hynek was the only one. Hynek actually was sophisticated about UFOs because he contracted the Air Force. Yeah, he had the whole swamp gas thing in '66, and he looked bad with that. But Alan Hynek actually did know UFOs extremely well, and he was very sophisticated with it.
James McDonald was an atmospheric guy, right? He wasn't an astronomer.
Oh, you said James McDonald.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's why McDonald was able to bury Donald Menzel in debates. Menzel, the astronomer at Harvard, big skeptic. McDonald tore him a new one repeatedly, embarrassed him in article after article. That's why Philip Klass basically made it his mission to destroy the reputation of James McDonald any way he could. Couldn't beat him scientifically, so they just used smear tactics. I mean, really nasty stuff. But yes, McDonald was the real deal.
And the other problem, this is, now, not every astronomer and not every physicist, but in a general sense,
There's Peter Sturrock. He was an astronomer on one of the good side.
But
there are astronomers who are good. I mean, I don't want to take them all down.
No, I'm not going to. But I'm going to say this next statement, and I mean it. That some of these physicists, these rock star physicists and these rock star astronomers try to make themselves the last word because they're so smart and they're smarter than us. And so
you just say it, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yes. Well, he's one.
Okay, let's just put the name out there. That's who you're talking about.
And that he and those like him are smarter than us, and we are stupid. And how could we be so stupid to believe in these things when somebody like them is telling you how it really is because they are so smart? And I'm offended by that, Richard. I am completely offended.
Well, you're offended for normal reason because it's obvious when you hear Tyson talk about UFOs that he doesn't know anything about it. It's obvious he does not know the subject when he talks about it. If he knew anything about the subject, he wouldn't sound as ignorant as he does.
And
Look, I'm sure he's a brilliant guy. He's probably way smarter than I am, but and he knows astronomy. He probably knows a lot of other science that I won't be able to compete with him. But he doesn't know UFOs. Doesn't know it, and he embarrasses himself without realizing when he talks about it.
The one thing that Neil deGrasse and others too, he's not the only one, but is this: you cannot say to me, where is the proof of ET? When I can turn around and say to them, where is the proof that there is no life elsewhere? You tell me that. What's the proof? You haven't been off planet. You haven't done any analysis of anything. You haven't seen anything out there. Everything that you are talking about is your opinion. You have no scientific fact to back up any of that.
A good scientist would agree with you totally. I mean, it's fair for an astronomer or an exobiologist or whatever to infer from the data that we're now getting. So we now have a pretty good idea that, there's a lot of stars that have planets, and we're able to figure out the wobble of the star and the rotation, and there's planets around them. Okay, fine. And I believe, at least I'm willing to trust that when they say we believe there are planets like Earth-sized planets. Okay, fine, fair enough. So it's fine to make an inference about the likelihood of a lot of life out there. I think that's most of them now believe that, but they wouldn't say that they have proof. But I think what they're forgetting, and what this show actually forgets, UFO. I think of the UFO subject as like a great Zen teacher. Like the subject itself is a teacher. It's like you go on to this spiritual retreat. You want to learn. You want to become wise, right? You want to become this wise person on the hill. So you go off you go up the hill, you go into a cave, and you meet the Zen master. So when you do that, are you going to say to this guy, I want to know everything right now because this is easy. Tell me everything. Like, that's how arrogant. And yet this is how people treat the UFO subject, as if you can just go right in and get it all at once. I was foolish enough to think that almost 30 years ago. I thought, I'm going to take 2-3 months out of my life. I'll figure this out, and then I'll move on. Yeah, okay, that was my fond, arrogant belief back then. But what you learn is that this subject is the great teacher. And what's your attitude? You go in with humility. And you go in realizing that this is a steep learning curve. And you're not just going to solve it right away. That's arrogance. And I feel that many of these academic scientists, that seems to be their attitude. They underestimate the complexity and depth and subtlety and profundity of the UFO phenomenon. I mean, this stuff will rip open your paradigm, not just once. Like, I love to use the analogy of the Matrix. Neo takes the red pill, changes his reality. Yeah, I wish it were that simple, one red pill. It doesn't work like that. This subject rips through your paradigm multiple times. And it humbles you if you really think you've got it figured out. So humility is the proper attitude to take when confronting this. Think about all the obstacles that we're facing with this subject. The subject is intrinsically difficult. I mean, we're dealing clearly, or most almost certainly, with an intelligence that's beyond ours, that's operating on a level that we're not quite there. They seem to be able to manipulate space and time in ways that we don't really quite get. They're doing things that are subterranean and covert. They don't want to be outed, right? So there's that whole thing. That's a challenge enough. Then you got the secrecy on our part of our governments and the intelligence community and the privatized nature of that secrecy, which is just, I call it legal illegality. You know, it's like these private corporations, Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing and Raytheon, and all, like they're all protected by the black budget structure of the United States government. No one can get at these guys. So you just, like, we have everything going against us. And on top of that, seems to me, there's an agenda. And it could be by these others, it could be by our hierarchical betters, or both in some way or another. So we've got our work cut out for us. And yes, people are being taken. People are being interacted with by these beings. You know, I'm sorry, but that last episode, that actually was really demeaning to people who've had abduction experiences. You know, the more I think about it, I kind of rushed through it. I blew through that last episode at almost 2x speed. I had subtitles, so I was able to follow. But anyway, yes, this is a very, very complicated, difficult subject. And what's offensive to you and to me is when people think they can just waltz right in and say, oh, yeah, I got this all figured out. This is what you're dealing with. No, why don't you put some work in and then come back in about 10 years and then talk to us?
Do you think JJ Abrams had that mindset? I mean, it's so simple. It's such a simple. It's like Occam's razor, right? Did he just jump into this too quick, thinking that not only that he had the answers, but that it has to be this way, and he went with it without backing up and being certainly much more objective.
Either that, or in 20 years we'll find out he did a kind of Robertson panel sort of thing, working for some group. I mean, look, we know for a fact that the U.S. military and the CIA have had Hollywood connections. They have, and they do. And in fact, they can be very heavy-handed over manipulation of scripts. And we know this. This is not fantasy or conspiracy theory, which is itself a CIA phrase from 1967, but we'll move on. No, this is actual reality. Okay. So that relationship is real. And who the hell knows, like, which documentary comes out that's got intelligence connections behind the scenes? How, these things are, it's very difficult to figure this stuff out. So I don't know. I have no idea what Abrams' actual beliefs are on this at all. But you're judging on the basis of this four-parter that we're talking about. Seems to me he is playing a role. That's what it looks like. And I want to make it clear, like, I'm not accusing anyone who's participated in this of anything less than honorable. I think John Greenwald comported himself extremely well. Leslie Kean, ditto. Ralph Blumenthal, Kevin Day, Diana Pasulka, all the others. Like, even the people that I found myself disagreeing with, except the two people from Penn State, I don't know anything about them. I don't know their background, but everyone came across George Knapp. They did well. So I'm never trying to criticize them. It's what was the overall direction of this four-parter. And it's funny, like, when I started this interview with you tonight, like, I wasn't thinking this as strongly as I am right this minute. But I think this looks to me like it looks like disinformation. I'm just going to be honest about it. There's good data in there, and it's worth watching. But I think you've got to be aware, like, what is actually the intention of this? What is the takeaway? And I think the takeaway is, yeah, there's UFOs, but we're probably making them, and there's no abductions, no aliens.
For those out there that support and have supported the Nimitz-Roosevelt narrative that the Tic Tac was ET, extraterrestrial, or certainly backwards, an alternate backwards engineered alien tech is another way to look at it. But that is terrestrial. That's us. That is an ET. But for those out there that have been on board with all of this and excited about the days of disclosure, they're going to turn around and watch this and back up going, wait a minute. This isn't what I have supported. This right here is taking this in the wrong direction. And think about that huge part of the community right now that would be very disappointed in the way that this is painting the picture. This is not part of modern disclosure that they thought that this presentation was going to be.
Right.
And,
right.
Yeah.
Agreed. I agree with you.
Yeah. And, especially, like I said, I watched episode 1. I was like, here we go. All right. This is
good.
cool.
It was a good episode.
Yeah, man. Good. And episode 2, and I was like, okay, all right. And then, wow. Right? I was
took the air out of tires.
So surprised. Richard, thank you so much, my friend. And let's talk soon. We've got a lot of work to do. Of course, we have Making Contact that week. That's August 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Oh, yes. We're going to promote that. I'm going to put up a banner on my site.
makingcontact.com. Thank you so much.
By the way,
Richard.
I want to say a big shout out to the Fadernauts, who are awesome, and any folks from Richard Dolan members who came out to check this out. Hello.
Right on, Richard.
Big hater to those folks too.
He's got his mic, his harmonica in his hand, and he's ready. Richard, thank you. Yeah. Hold it up. What kind is it? Is it a Lee Oscar?
I have a collection of Lee Oscar harmonicas, but this is a Hohner, which is a great harp.
Very nice.
I've got my Lee Oscars running around somewhere. I can't keep track of them all.
Do you have a gun holster that you put up?
Yeah, I do.
You do? You've got a harmonica belt?
I do indeed, yes. Do you know, I know I'm keeping you late. So this is a funny thing. 15 years ago, more than that probably, locally here in Rochester, New York, do you know what I did for a few years? I'm already a UFO author at this point. I taught adult learner classes for like a year or two on occasion on how to play the harmonica. I did UFO lectures first for like local high schools. This is I just wanted to deal with like local people, right? And so I did these I would do like lectures on UFOs, and then one of the ladies at one of the high schools is like, "Wow, you're really good at this. Can you do anything else?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you know what I can do? I'll bet you I can teach any person how to play basic harmonica. You give me 2 hours, and I'm going to teach them how to play." And she said, "You're on." And so for a couple of years, I swear to God, I did this. Go to like some high school classroom, and all these people sitting in the little desks, right?
Yeah.
And they each had a harmonica. And it's true, though. So, like, for the first hour, I taught them to play things like A Hunting We Will Go and Mary Had a Little Lamb, like basic things. And in the second hour, I taught them how to play blues harmonica, which is a different, it's a different style, different technique. And I'll just say, like, some people did all right. And then after a while, I was like, this is too much work. Like, there's no money in this. And it was a little bit of fun, but I was like, got to move on.
Man, okay. Yeah, we're going to do, we need to do a live stream teaching everybody how to play harmonica and bust that out, man. I'm all down for that. I'm all down for it. Richard, thank you so much, man. We just went pole to pole, and it was unexpected.
That was fun.
Yeah, and I had a whole thing. I was going to take phone calls from all of the distraught people out there that went and saw the series, and I had a whole plan, but we'll save all of that for Fader Night. Thank you so much, my friend. I blew through the commercials. Thank you, KGRA, for keeping us on the air, and everybody else. But it's all simple to do. I want everybody to go and visit RichardDolanMembers.com. Go and check it out, get registered, and go hang out with Richard.
Thank you, Jimmy. There's a lot of free stuff on that site, too.
Thank you so much, my friend. And this episode will be at Richard Dolan Members. I do that for Richard. So there you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you so much, Richard. Enjoy the rest of your evening, my friend. Go play that harp.
I'm going to bed.
I'll talk to you. Rich,
have a great night, everyone.
You too, Richard. Richard Bleepin Dolan. Thank you, Richard. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. We've got an amazing week coming up here on Fade to Black. Not only tonight with Richard Dolan and a full analysis of Showtime's UFO by JJ Abrams. And again, after listening to our presentation tonight, I encourage everybody to go and watch all 4 episodes. I said earlier tonight in the opening of the show, I may be wrong. I don't know. I've now watched it twice. I've watched episode 3 times. I need to go back and watch it all again. It seems a little funky to me. But I need your analysis too. And you may look at it with a different set of eyes, and maybe I missed something, and everybody can help me out. But if you're a subscriber to the Showtime app, all 4 episodes are available to you right now. You can go and do that. Episode 1 is available on their Showtime YouTube channel. But I encourage everybody to go and watch it. All of the presentations, everything is done so well. It's shot so well. It is at another level. But overall, there's a flavor here. And I'm trying to figure it out. All right? So I encourage everybody. Tomorrow night, right here, Stephen Bassett. We've got this other series that just premiered on Netflix. It is called Secret UFO Projects. It is trending right now on Netflix. It's easy to find. It's free to see. Just head over to Netflix and check that out. It is 6 episodes. And Stephen Bassett, Richard Dolan is excellent in this. You have that. And then, of course, Ross Coulthardt's In Plain Sight. That documentary is now available for free worldwide on YouTube, and that is from Channel 7 over in Australia. So lots of things just kicked off. Now, I also mentioned, before I get out of here, is the documentary Val, about Val Kilmer. I did not know. I had heard, but I didn't jump into this, but I didn't realize that Val got throat cancer and has lost his voice. It's incredible. It's incredible. The man is very, very strong. I'll say that. But yes, the documentary loosely is about that, but it is a collection of based around. Val had a video camera back when that technology was completely brand new. And he's got a warehouse, literally a warehouse full of videotapes that he has shot going back to 1980, and his parents' ranch and things in the valley here in Southern California. It's pretty incredible. His parents bought Will Rogers Ranch and built a movie studio out of it, him and his brothers, and shot things. So it starts then and goes all the way through to today. And it's a pretty incredible documentary. So aside from all of the UFO stuff that is out there right now, Val on Amazon is absolutely incredible. I couldn't stop watching it. I couldn't. So I squeezed that in to the other 20 episodes of UFO stuff that I watched this weekend. Tomorrow night, right here, Stephen Bassett. Okay? All right? Are we all on the same page? Whew, man. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We've got an amazing week here on Fade to Black. Very special thanks to Richard Bleepin Dolan. Tomorrow night, Stephen Bassett. Wednesday night, Dr. Robert M. Schock. Until tomorrow night with Mr. Bassett, I want everybody to be safe
It's time to fade to black.